Welcome to another video session. My name is Suresh Babu from the Department of Electronics and Communication. And this video is an introduction to analog electronics and digital electronics. So the subject code is CS301ES. In this video session, I will briefly go through the syllabus of digital electronics and analog electronics. And also, I will be discussing why you should study this subject and what are the course objectives, what is the objective of studying this course, and what are the outcomes of this course. So, this is the first subject that you can see in your syllabus, second year, first sem. So this subject is associated with the lab. So some of the concepts, whatever you study here, you will be practically doing experiments on that and seeing, verifying the results and understand the concept more practically. All right. So let us go to the syllabus. So the first unit is about diodes and application of diodes. All right. So diodes you would have studied in PU level, in your PUC or your +2, whatever you call that. So there you would have studied about the junction diodes. So here you will again study the same topics, but with more applications of that diodes. And again, we are going to study different types of diodes available. Not all diodes, there are a lot of diodes available, but few diodes that you are going to be studying. So first, you will be studying about the junction diode. As you know, whenever you form a p-type material with an n-type material, you will form a junction, right? So that is called as a junction diode. What is a diode? A diode is a two-terminal device. It is called a nonlinear device. Why? Because you see that it, if you observe the VI characteristics of the diode, you see there is a nonlinear relationship between the current and voltage. So you would have studied the characteristics. Again, you will be studying the VI characteristics of the diode, and there you will see that the diode is non-linear. Suppose if I have to simply draw the characteristics of a diode, just for your your understanding, I'm just drawing. So here is this x-axis and y-axis. So x-axis represents the voltage and y-axis represents the current. If you draw starting from 0, so this is the 0 point, and you see that as I increase the voltage, the current will slowly increase, and then at one point it will start increasing very high. So we say that the diode is on. So whenever you say that, when do you say the circuit is on? See, when there is a current that is flowing, you say the fan is running. When is the fan running? When you close the switch. What happens when you close the switch? The current runs. When will the current run? When there is a closed circuit, when there is a closed path. When the switch is open, the path is not connected, so the current does not flow, the fan does not run. That's a basic understanding of what is a switch, how it works. It just opens and closes the path there. So we say that when it's a closed path or a closed switch, the circuit is closed and the current can pass through that. When the circuit is open, the current cannot pass through an open circuit. So similar to that, here you see that when you observe the diode characteristics, you can approximate it to on condition and off condition. So here you see that, as I said, y-axis represents the current, x-axis represents the voltage. So here we see that there is current, and here we see that there is no current. So we can say that in this region, it acts as an open circuit with no current flowing. In this region, it acts as a closed circuit with current flowing. That is the simplest example I can tell you about the diode. So we see that a simple diode, uh, it as I just drew the graph, you can see it is not a linear graph. It is an exponential. The current increases very rapidly. Uh, okay, so therefore it is not a linear characteristics. That is what we say. So therefore it is not a linear device. It's a non-linear device, diode. Next, um, let us look at the VI. Then you will be studying about the diffusion capacitance, switching times, how the breakdown occurs, and there are breakdown diodes. So you will be studying all that in diode and its application. That is the initial part of the diodes. So you can split this into two parts, part A and part B, where part A you will be studying about the junction diodes and few other types of diodes such as breakdown diodes, tunnel diodes, photodiode, and LED. Next, you will be studying the applications of the diode. Okay, so this is the first unit. Now your question might be, why should I study electronics when I have taken up a computer science? Why should I study electronics? So you see, all these subjects are coming under electrical sciences. So what do I mean by that? When you see all these electronic components, how do they work? They work when you provide electricity for that to make them work, isn't it? So even you talk of a computer without power, without electricity, it won't work. So therefore, we require electricity. So therefore, they all come under electrical sciences. So they all are, whether you talk of computers, whether you talk of electronics, they are all broadly coming under the electrical engineering subject. But then, and that electrical, they are specialized into computers, specialized into electronics. All right. Now, why electronics? So you see that any computer, you see, you're writing program. That's right. But then, how that program is interpreted, how that you're talking of a uh, internet in your computer, how is it, how that signal, or how are you sending information, how are you receiving the information? So there is communication involved in that. How this communication is done, it is by electronic. So you see that email, what does that email stand for? It stands for electronic mail. So there is electronically you are using these information and storing them and retrieving them and presenting them. So there's a lot of different types of electronics principles that are involved in giving you the operation of a complete computer. So for example, you're storing your memory. What is that memory made of? It is storing some data there. So how that is getting stored without electricity? So you say that it is logic 1 and 0. How that is getting a logic 1 and logic 0? Again, there is some voltage that represents logic high, logic low, isn't it? So there is, you are going to apply the electronics into that. Next, you're talking of gates and gates. What are those gates made of? The simple AND gate, OR gate, or the NOT gate, whatever gate you're going to talk about. That's the basics of your digital electronics, right? Now, what are those things made of? They are made of these electronic components such as transistors and diodes. All right. So therefore, you have to study this subject to understand how that computer internally, if not thoroughly get an understanding of the uh, complete operation of the computer, but at least some idea on what are those components involved in making the computer work, right? So these are all the um, basics that are inside the computer to make the computer work. Okay, be it your memory, be it your CPU, be it the communication, whatever is taking place, being the display. So they're all electronics that is working to make that, uh, to give you the complete feel of the computer. Okay, so even if you're writing program, of course there are these interpreters and those this you have the different what you call compilers that are converting the programs, but where it is getting stored, how is it getting stored? It's all getting stored electronically. Okay, so for that reason you have to study them, study this electronics. So again, when you come to electronics, so there is uh, analog electronics and digital electronics. What is the difference between analog electronics and digital electronics? So here, this diodes and application we study under analog electronics. So that means it's all analog in nature. That means it's continuous. We are going to look at how uh, the voltage and current, they have a continuous function. Okay, and we see the different other types of diodes, such as breakdown diodes, tunnel diodes, photodiodes, and LEDs. There are very few that they've considered. There are much more diodes, but in the under the breakdown diodes, you have the Zener diodes and the avalanche diodes. So, and tunnel diodes. Why is it called a tunnel diode? All that you will understand when we go into that subject on that discussion. Next, you see there is a photodiode. Nowadays, even you have the uh, photodiode is basically converting the light into electronics. Okay, into electrical uh, energy. Okay, so that so your light energy is getting converted into the electrical energy by this photodiode, and then LED is the electrical energy getting converted into light energy. So this is the vice versa of this. So therefore, we can see how when you're displaying. So nowadays, when you talk of the computer, you talk of an LED screen or an LCD screen. What is that? Basically, it is made of these LEDs. So your touch screen, all that. So you get a kind of an idea on what exactly are those things by studying this unit. Next, we have the applications of the diode, which is used for the clipping circuits, where you can clip off some part of the waveform, and you can do comparators. And this is a very essential. The all whatever you see in your houses, all the voltage, whatever is coming is all AC voltage. Now your computer, there's an adapter, right? And then that comes into your, so the 230 volts is reduced down to some very small voltage, around 12 volts to 15 volts, and then that comes to your computer and the computer operates. How the 230 volts is reduced, all right? So there is some operation called the rectifier. So what does this rectifier do? It converts your AC that is coming to your house into a DC, because all the systems, whatever we use, they normally require the DC, that is a direct current. They don't want an alternating current or alternating voltage. They want direct current. So therefore, we have the half wave rectifier. I mean, the circuit that converts the AC to DC, we call that as a rectifier. So we have half wave rectifier and full wave rectifier. Why is it called half wave rectifier? Why is it called a full wave rectifier? Half wave rectifier, as the name says, if you consider one cycle, there are two half cycles, isn't it? So if you consider an AC signal, for example, let me draw here. If you simply consider an AC signal, just one sine wave I'm considering. Okay, so there is a positive half cycle and there's a negative half cycle. So if the conversion or the rectifier works for only one half cycle, then we call it as a half wave rectifier. In this wave, it is working for only one half wave. If it is working for both waves, this half wave and this half wave, then we call it as a full wave rectifier. All right, so that is a simple understanding on what is a half wave rectifier, what is a full wave rectifier. And then again, you can use a filter to get a better rectified output. Okay, so you will see that when you study the rectifier in detail. There are some derivations involved in that, We should see the efficiency, what is the rectification, what is the ripple. Ripple is a measure of uh, amount of AC present in the DC. Now you are converting the AC signal to DC signal, right? Now, when I'm converting AC to DC, if you're wondering what is that AC to DC, I'm just telling, suppose, as I said, this is your input is a sine wave, all right? So the input is a sine wave like this. Now, at the output of the rectifier, it should be something like this. This is an AC, which is alternating, positive, negative, alternating cycles. So that has to be converted something like this. It's a DC, direct current. Okay, so it's a DC constant. So there should be something like this, but then are you going to get a complete DC like this? No, you will not get a complete DC like this because of some um, internal characteristics of these electronic components. So therefore, how much of AC is converted to DC and how much of AC component is still present in the DC component that you are going to. So if you actually see, it might not be completely like this. If I have to draw this, it will look like this. Um, Let me again draw here. Mm, yeah. So though should be the ideal output of the rectifier, it might be something like this. So it is still fluctuating, but then it is not fluctuating as much as this, right? Here it is going positive and it is going negative. But here it will be unipolar. Here it is bipolar. That means it works for positive as well as negative. But this is unipolar. That means this is having one polarity, right? Only positive. Okay, so therefore this can be, I mean, there is some AC that is present in the DC, right? So the measure of that, we call it as a ripple factor. So we have to study all that when we take up this course on diodes. I know right now it might be just be like a bouncers, but when we go through that, you will be able to appreciate what are those concepts, why we have to study them. It gives a measure on how good is a rectifier. Now, as you say, I've already known a half wave rectifier. Why should I go for a full wave rectifier? Now that ripple factor will tell you how good is your rectifier. So by that you can choose which rectifier you want to use. So you should have a reason why, when I am already having one rectifier, why should I go for another rectifier? So that uh, ripple factor will tell you why we should go for the better rectifier than the half wave rectifier. All right. So that is about the diode that you will be studying. So that is about the diode, that is a junction diode, and the other different types of diodes are the breakdown diodes, tunnel diodes, and photodiodes and LEDs. The application of these diodes are for clipping, comparator, how you can compare, uh, and then you can use for rectification and half wave, full wave rectification, and so on. So those are the applications of the diode. Next, coming to the another important component is the transistor. Now, what is a transistor? Is simple understanding is two diodes connected back to back becomes a transistor. So therefore, in a diode, there is one junction. In a transistor, there are two junctions. All right. Now, when I have three, that means in a transistor, I will have three terminals. Okay. So when I have three terminals, so you call that as emitter, base, and collector. Why it is called emitter? Why is it called base? Why is it called collector? Uh, let me simply, but before that, let me simply draw and recollect your understanding on a diode. What is a diode symbol? So this is a diode symbol. Okay, so normally this is the diode symbol, and we call this as the anode represented with A and the cathode represented with K. So cathode is negative or the N type, and anode is positive or the P type. So as I said, the diode is formed when you join an N type with a P type. So there is a junction. So here the junction is not shown. Of course, what does this arrow indicate? The arrow indicates the direction of the current. We say that the current, conventionally what we say is current flows from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. Now, if you look at the water flows from top to bottom, right? So it is flowing from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. Can you see water flowing from down to bottom? No. That will not happen. That is against the law of nature, isn't it? So this is the law of nature we are going to consider, that the current flows always from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. For example, if you keep a chalk on a sloping desk, if you just hold it there, it will be there. But when you remove your hand, the chalk will come rolling down because of the slope down. So if suppose if you consider this as a slope, if I keep a chalk here, as long as you hold, it will be there. So as you remove your hand, it will come rolling down to this point, isn't it? So that's a slope there. So therefore, we consider in convention, we consider the positive charge to be more at a higher potential than the negative charge. Okay, I mean than the negative of the battery. So therefore, we say this is positive and this is negative. Anode is positive, cathode is negative. So we say that the current flows from the anode to cathode, or from a point of higher potential to a point of low potential. So that indicates the arrow mark. So arrow mark is for high point of higher potential to a point of low potential. I hope the concept of what is that arrow mark, what is the diode symbol is very clear for you. Okay. Now, if you say a Zener diode, it would put a Z for that or a Z for that. So this becomes a symbol of a Zener diode. Same anode and cathode. All right. And then an LED, if you want a photodiode, you have to put it's the same diode symbol you will be drawing. Okay, and then that is the anode, and this side this is the cathode, that is the anode. So LED means it emits light. So you put some arrow mark like this to say that light is being emitted. So that becomes your LED. Now, if you put light inside, that means it is observing. So therefore, that becomes your photodiode. It is getting activated by the light or the photon. So that becomes a symbol. So the concept remains the same. Again, you have the anode and cathode. What does that arrow mark indicate? It indicates the conventional current flow. The conventional current is actually, we are telling that it flows from a point of higher potential to a point of lower potential. So that is the symbol of the diode. Okay, now when you come to the symbol of a transistor, so as I said, it has 3 terminals. Okay, now it has 3 terminals. We call the emitter, base, and base is here, base and the collector. Okay, now why is it called emitter? Why is it called collector? Why is it called the base? All right. So as I said, when you take 2 diodes and connect back to back, so I have another diode connected back to back like this. So if you just simply take a diode, not the LED, of course you have the photo transistor also. Okay. So if you take 2 photo diodes and connect back to back, that becomes your photo transistor. So therefore, I'm just eliminating this, saying that this is a normal junction diode. So when I join them, so this is getting connected. So then I get, what is this? This is P type. As I said, it is positive. So P, N, and P. So I can get a PNP transistor, or I can join the other way around, whereby, so if I have like this. So this is one diode, and this is another diode. So when I join, I get NPN. So I get an NPN transistor. All right. So this is whatever I've drawn here is an NPN transistor. So the current is flowing outside. All right. So as you see, the current is flowing outside the region. Now, why is it called a collector? See, basically the electrons will be flowing. The emitter is what is giving out, and as the electrons are simply going through the barrier, something has to collect all these electrons, right? So emitter gives out the charges, and now in this case we talk of positive and negative charges. So positive charges are negative charges are the electrons, and the positive charges are the holes. So when you talk of a PNP transistor, so PNP, the charges that will be flowing in a p-type region will be holes. If you talk of an NPN transistor, the charges that will be flowing will be electrons. All right. So therefore, whatever the charges we are talking about, so emitter gives out all the charges, and it is getting collected by the collector, or it is reaching by the collector. So that is the simple understanding of the names: Y emitter, Y collector, and Y base. So some common, it just flows through some charge carriers flows through the base, but most of them, majority of them, flow to the collector. So that is the understanding, simple understanding of a transistor. All right. Now, when I represent any system, when I want to apply input, and simply I should always connect, I should have 2 points for connecting the input, and 2 points I have to connect to take out the output. All right. So therefore, if I want to use a transistor and I want to connect the input, I require 4 terminals, right? But I have only 3 terminals. So therefore, we call something called the configuration of the transistor. That means one of the terminals I will be using as a common for input and output. So if I'm using the base as a common, so I will be applying input between emitter and base, and output I will be taking between the collector and base. So that becomes your CB configuration, or common base configuration. So similarly, if I'm applying, if I'm making emitter as a common, and I will be applying input between base and emitter, and taking the output between the collector and emitter, then I call it as the CE configuration, that is common emitter configuration. Similarly, when I make a collector as a common for input and output, then I will be applying the input at the base, and then output I will be collecting at the emitter. So then that becomes a common collector. So therefore, you have 3 configurations. I hope the point of why you have to study these 3 configurations are clear. Now, the transistor works in a different way in each of these uh, modes or configurations. So that is why you have to study these configurations. As you know, they are different. That means an N-type, P-type, and the regions are different. Okay, so emitter region and collector region is very large, and emitter region is small, and base region is very, very small. So the charge carriers also varies. So therefore, when you connect in different configuration, obviously their way of working will be different. So therefore, you have to study the how they uh, work in different configurations. So that being the introduction to transistor and different configuration. Of course, one of the major application of this transistor is an amplifier. As the name says, it does some amplification. That means if I give some low signal, it increases its strength and gives it as a high signal. So that is a work of an amplifier. So you will study how the transistor can be made to work as an amplifier. All right. And the transistor and the diode are called as active devices. Now, what is an active device? There are, for example, if you have other components such as resistors, capacitors, and inductors. So they, uh, when you apply voltage or current, they just do some operation. Resistance, it offers resistance. All right. That means it opposes the direction of the current. It opposes the flow of current through it. And inductor, it stores the um, it stores energy in the form of current, whereas capacitor, it stores the energy in the form of uh, voltage when you apply voltage across the inductor and capacitor. So they are devices, they are called as passive devices. Now, what are these active devices? So for uh, making them work, you have to apply some external DC voltages for this. Unlike your resistor, a resistor, whether you give AC or DC, it will still operate as a resistance only. But when you give an AC or DC, so this diode, when you have to make it work, first you have to do something called the biasing, right? That's what we call a forward bias, a reverse bias, right? What is bias? Bias is basically setting up of voltages and currents inside in the electronic component to make it work properly. Okay, that is called as biasing. So therefore, we do biasing of the diodes and transistors. And so, what are the different ways of biasing for the transistor? So you study under the emitter bias and the common the other different types of biasing circuit you will be considering, and that forms the uh, BJT, or the uh, bipolar junction transistor. So you have studied BJTs. So next, under FET, you will be studying field effect transistors. FET stands for field effect transistors. So what is the difference? When I already know BJT, why should I study FET? Will be the first question. So you see that most of the circuits, what will be the ICs, whatever the integrated circuits, whatever will be using, they will be using what you called as MOSFET and CMOS and so on. What is a MOSFET? It's a metal oxide semiconductor FET. It's a type of FET. All right. What is FET? FET is a type of a transistor. Okay, it's a BJT. So bipolar junction transistor. As I said here, you have NPN and PNP. So there are two what you call two carriers, what you call the charges, n type and p type, that is electrons and holes. So that is why it is called as bipolar. Whereas FETs are having only unipolar. It can be only electrons, or it can be only the positive charge holes. So therefore, they are more opted for in the integrated circuits and so on. All right, and also they cause less distortion and so on. So that's the reason we go for FET. So what is FET? FET is again a transistor, a type of a transistor, but this is uh, unipolar, whereas BJT is a bipolar. Okay, so so we are going stage by stage. So first we study diodes, then we extend our understanding to BJT, which is two diodes connected back to back. Now BJT is a bipolar, it has some drawbacks. So therefore we extend our understanding to FET, which is the field effect transistor. Okay, now why it is called field effect? Once we go to the topic, we will be able to discuss on that. Okay, again, FET is a three-terminal device. It has a source. The three terminals are called as source, gate, and drain. Now, again, as I said, for the transistor, I require two inputs and two outputs. So I should treat one as a common. So you have the common source, common drain, and common gate. Common gate is not normally used. Common source and common drain are the configuration that you will be using there. Okay. Next, advanced version of this FET is the MOS FET. The, the normal FET, we call it as a JFET, or the junction FET. Okay. And then you have MOS FET, and how it is used, all that you will be studying in the under the FET topic. Okay. Next, so these are all the analog electronics. So analog electronics, it all you are dealing with voltage, how they behave at for temperature, how they vary, how they are affected. So how you keep them, make them work as an amplifier. All that you study here in the analog electronics. So this much is analog electronics. Actually, there's much more to study, but your syllabus is restricted to study only this much. This is a basic understanding of analog electronics. Okay, next we go to digital electronics. Digital electronics, we deal with all the gates. Now, what are these gates? They are nothing but made of these electronic components such as diodes and transistors. Now, if you come here and see DTL, HTL, TTL, what are all these things? This is nothing but a diode transistor logic. How you can make a OR gate, or how you can construct an AND gate or an OR gate by using a diode and transistor, by using a transistor, by using a resistor and transistor. So all that is what you're going to study. So here, whatever you studied, uh, you will be extending that understanding to implementation of this OR gate and AND gate and all the other gates. All right. So how you can make them. Okay, so only here you will be dealing with some electronic circuits where you will be seeing the diodes and transistors into picture. After that, you will be going into digital. That means all only gates you will be talking about. So gates, that is the OR gate, AND gate, NOT gate, XOR gate, and all that you will be studying. So that will be the digital electronics. So most of the students, they find digital electronics a lot more easier and easy to grasp, and they concentrate more on that. So but if you want to know what exactly are those digital electronics all about, you have to know analog electronics. Otherwise the knowledge is incomplete without knowing what are those analog electronics. And one more thing you should understand is that whenever you are going to appear for the what you call competitive exams, so your second year first sem and second sem subject form the basics of um, any of your competitive exams. So you want to go as an computer engineer and you want to apply for some job, and they ask you some questions. So these questions will also come into picture. So they will ask you some questions on these topics. So you, for that reason also, you have to study this subject. Okay, your syllabus is made very concise. The previous batches had to study two different subjects. One, digital electronics is a separate subject and analog electronics is a separate subject. But for you, it is clubbed together and the portions are reduced, and you are made to study digital and analog electronics. That being the brief introduction on the digital circuits. Next, we are going to study what are called as combinational logic circuits. That means that we are going to use these AND gates, OR gates, and the other gates, NAND and NOR. We're going to use them to build some small circuits called as the combinational circuits. So what are those small circuits? That are nothing but the adder. How you can create an adder circuit that can add two binary numbers. How you can use these gates to create a simple circuit that can perform subtraction. So or you can use the decimal addition and binary multiplication. If I want to compare two numbers, can I have a circuit for that? Yes. Can I do the decoding operation, encoding operation? So all that small circuits you'll be designing and you'll be studying. Not exactly designing, it's already available, so you will be studying how they work by learning this unit called combinational logic circuit. So you are going to combine, as the name says, combinational. What is that? You're going to combine these gates and form some logic circuits. So it's a logic. We are not going to actually perform uh, the subtractor. We are going to use some logic to perform subtraction operation. So when you go to that topic, you will understand that there is simply a logic that has been used to perform subtraction operation. Okay, so that is why it is called as a logic circuit. Next, from here, we after using the combinational logic, we extend it to the sequential logic. So sequential logic means it has memory. You can store at least uh, one bit of information. So here in combinational logic, you can't store information. So when you put in clock, uh, then it becomes a sequential circuit. So it follows some sequence. So that is why we call it as a sequential logic circuit, such as registers, counters, RAM, ROM. They all come under this sequential logic. They are all nothing but where you can store some. They are all storage. How you can do some storage, again, as I said, what are all these made of? They are all made of the OR gates and AND gates, again in the combinational logic, with apply after applying some clocks, okay, or some timing. Now again, what are these OR gates and AND gates? Again, when you go to the basics, they are nothing but made of FETs, that is the transistors and diodes. So you see that how they are all interlinked. Okay, so therefore, if you have to study this subject, you have to study thoroughly from the analog electronics. Then you have to extend the understanding to digital electronics. So that is the brief introduction on the course. Now let me just go brief you through the labs that you will be looking into. So the labs, uh, yeah, so you will be uh, these are the different experiments that you will be doing. So you will be studying, you will be doing experiment on rectifiers. You will be doing this is a transistor, how you can use a transistor as a common emitter amplifier, how you can use it as a common base amplifier, how you can make it work as a common source amplifier. You will be studying, and then you have to study the H parameters. So that is basically you understand when you want to compare the transistor configurations, on what basis you compare them. You understand? So for that, you will be using what are called as H parameters. So in terms of H parameters, you will be comparing each of these transistors. Okay, what is the H parameters? It links the input and output. Okay, so that is a simple way to tell what is a H parameter. Okay, then you will also be studying the FET characteristics in a common source configuration. And these are all the analog electronics related experiments. Next comes the digital electronics. So you will be realizing some Boolean expression using gates. You will simplify the Boolean expression and realize using gates. Then you will realize the universal gates. Can anybody tell me what are universal gates? So you will be using the NAND gate and the NOR gates. So how you can use NAND gates and NOR gates as universal gates, you will be doing that. How you can use the AND gate and NAND gate and NOR gate to realize all other gates. Okay, so that is why they both are called as universal gates. Next, you will be studying the adder and subtractor, and then these are all uh, the adder and subtractor is the combinational circuit, and here you will this is the sequential circuit where asynchronous and synchronous counters using flip-flops. And then you will be studying this again, the transistor logic, DTL. So this again involves the analog electronics experiments there. Okay, so with that, you will be completing the syllabus. So I hope you got a brief idea on why you should study this subject, what are all the different things that you will be studying in this subject. Okay, so thanks for your patience. We'll continue in the next session. Thank you.